The European Union has given final approval to the 90 billion euros loan for Ukraine after Hungary lifted its veto.
The flow of Russian oil to Slovakia through the Druzhba pipeline has resumed, paving the way to unblock the 90 billion euro loan for Ukraine.
The war in Iran has pushed the European economy into decline in April while fueling inflation.
The European Union has given final approval to the 90 billion euros loan for Ukraine after Hungary lifted its veto, ending an explosive saga that saw the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, in his last month in office, push the bloc's internal norms to the breaking point. The internal procedure was launched by EU ambassadors on Wednesday and finalized on Thursday. No objections were raised, and the last pending regulation, which needs unanimity to amend the EU budget, was approved. The breakthrough came 2 days after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the Druzhba pipeline, which carries cheap Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia, had been repaired and could resume operations. The interruption of oil flows through Druzhba was at the core of Orbán's decision to veto the 90 billion euros loan in February, but his defeat in the general election earlier this month paved the way to break the deadlock. The European Commission says the first disbursement to Kiev will be made as soon as possible once all the legal and technical documents are in place. The executive has a cash reserve at its disposal to move fast.
Diplomatic efforts to end the war between the United States and Iran appear to have stalled as Tehran escalates tensions by firing at ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. maintains its naval blockade of Iranian ports. Iran is demanding a complete end to the U.S. blockade for any talks to resume after the U.S. in recent days intercepted Iranian cargo vessels it said were attempting to evade its siege.
Operation Economic Fury continues, and the effective and successful naval blockade continues as well of ships and vessels that are moving to and from Iranian ports. We are completely strangling their economy through this blockade. They're losing $500 million a day. The Karg Island is completely full. They can't move oil in and out. They can't even pay their own people as a result of this economic leverage that President Trump has inflicted over them. So he's satisfied with that as we await their response, and we will see. The president has not set a firm deadline to receive an Iranian proposal.
Meanwhile, Israeli attacks on Lebanon have continued despite the U.S. brokered ceasefire, with the health ministry announcing that at least 6 people were killed in 3 separate strikes on Wednesday. Israel says people violated the truce by getting too close to its troops and stressed that Hezbollah is a common enemy that must be defeated.
We made a historic decision to negotiate directly with Lebanon after more than 40 years. Unfortunately, Lebanon is a failed state, a state that is de facto under Iranian occupation through Hezbollah. But this also leads to a conclusion. Hezbollah is common enemy of Israel and Lebanon.
Oil prices continue to rise as uncertainty looms over the war, with Brent crude again nosing over the $100 a barrel mark on Thursday, a roughly 40% spike compared to pre-war levels. Pakistan is continuing to engage with both Washington and Tehran in hopes of getting peace talks back on track to reach a comprehensive agreement to end the hostilities.
Iran's exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi was splattered with red liquid on Thursday as he left a building in Berlin. Pahlavi had just departed a news briefing during which he criticized the ceasefire between the United States and Iran. The incident occurred outside Germany's Federal News Conference building. He appeared unhurt by the liquid coating the back of his blazer and neck and waved to his supporters before he got into a car that drove away. Police said the liquid appeared to be tomato juice. The alleged perpetrator, whose name was not released in line with German privacy rules, was immediately detained by police. Pahlavi is the son of Iran's former Shah, who was ousted during the 1979 revolution. He's been trying to position himself as a player in his country's future, though it's unclear how much support he has in Iran after he has been in exile for nearly 50 years. Hundreds of his supporters also demonstrated on Thursday near Germany's parliament building.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming.
The US and its NATO allies have an excellent relationship, despite President Donald Trump's threats to exit the alliance, Latvian Defense Minister Andris Spruds told Euronews.
On practical military level, we had excellent relationship. There is presence of US troops in Europe, also in the Baltic countries, in Latvia, and we continuously, actively cooperate. So I see that alliance remains strong, that it is one for all for one. It is beneficial for all member states, including United States.
Minister Spruds also said that he has no doubt that the US would come to help should the alliance's mutual defense clause be triggered. Asked whether the Iran war risks diverting US-made weapons from Ukraine and Europe to the Middle East, Spruds acknowledged potential shortages.
We might see some shortages, and some countries have admitted it, that actually there are some delays, but this is delay because of the lack of defense industry in general. So we see the shortage in general. So that's why once more we have to develop the industrial base, technological base, also focusing on new technologies.
Spruds also said that there was an appetite in Europe to contribute to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
The Pentagon shakeup continues. The U.S. Department of Defense announced on Wednesday that Navy Secretary John Phelan has left his post, making him the latest top U.S. defense official to step down or be fired. No reason was given for the unexpected departure of the Navy's top civilian official, coming as the maritime forces have imposed a blockade on Iranian ports and are targeting ships linked to Tehran around the world during a tenuous ceasefire in the war. Phelan is leaving during a busy time for the Navy. It has 3 aircraft carriers deployed in or heading to the Middle East, while the Trump administration says all the armed forces are poised to resume combat operations against Iran should the ceasefire expire. Following Phelan's departure, the post will be held on an interim basis by Navy Under-Secretary Hung Kao, a 25-year Navy combat veteran who ran unsuccessful campaigns for the U.S. Senate and House in Virginia. The announcement marks the latest in a series of shakeups of top leadership at the Pentagon, coming just weeks after U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth fired the Army's top officer, General Randy George.
The flow of Russian oil to Slovakia through the Druzhba pipeline, which crosses Ukraine, has resumed, the country's economy minister announced on Thursday, a breakthrough in an issue that has caused a major diplomatic spat in Europe. The confirmation is set to unblock the €90 billion loan for Ukraine, which has been vetoed by Hungary and Slovakia since February. Budapest and Bratislava accused Kyiv of deliberately withholding transit. Ukraine said the halt was forced by the need to repair the pipeline after it was hit by a Russian strike.
Myslím si, že otvorenie ropovodu Druzhba dnes ráno o 2:00 je jasným potvrdením, že ropovod Druzhba nebol poškodený. Viete, o čom hovorím. Nebol poškodený a ropovod Druzhba a ropa boli použité ako nástroj v geopolitickom súboji, ktorý momentálne prebieha.
Unlike the rest of the European Union, which stopped imports of Russian oil after its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Hungary and Slovakia still depend on Russia for their energy needs. The EU has been trying since February to push through a new raft of sanctions against Russia, which Hungary and Slovakia have also blocked due to the oil feud. Prime Minister Fico said he expected both issues to be solved on Thursday.
The war in Iran has done what no trade dispute or tariff threat has managed to achieve over the past 2 years. The conflict has pushed the economy into decline in April, while driving inflation sharply higher, according to S&P Global. Germany saw its first contraction in activity in almost a year, while France's slowdown deepened to its weakest level in over a year. The service sector recorded its weakest performance since the pandemic lockdowns in early 2021. Manufacturing paradoxically went the other way, but the gain is misleading. Companies are ordering inputs ahead of expected shortages and further price increases. Hence, the increase in production reflects defensive stockpiling rather than recovering demand.
On one side, it's good because then younger people who are going to be impacted by it, won't be able to get addicted to smoking. But in the same breath, I would argue, civil rights and older people who are informed about all the risks and everything should be able to make their own choices with it all personally.
It's absolutely a really good idea. As a former smoker, I've been giving up now 15 years, and it's the best thing I ever did.
We know all the health risks with it. It affects every organ in your body, and it's antisocial. However, if you're talking about rights as well, people have a right to do things, or a right to sort of do unhealthy pursuits like smoking. So that obviously comes into the equation.